and welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And we had a big anniversary, Dr. Lopkin, last week. Went unannounced, but I'm sure all our fans were waiting for us to announce that that was our 200th show. And our fans at YouTube celebrated that accomplishment by banning us. And only you can explain this to our audience because I can't do that. Not because I don't want to, because I'm incapable of it.
It is absolutely amazing. We were talking about the January 6th Commission and how they are claiming now that Donald Trump caused the riots, not by directly calling for people to riot and invade the Capitol, but as part of the overall result of him fighting against the results of the 2020 election. And I made the comment that by this same logic, the 2020 election would actually have been fraudulent, not because there was any actual fraud at the voting booth, but because of the fraudulent Steele dossier, the media hiding the Hunter Biden laptop story,
hiding Biden.
Hiding Biden in the basement all this time. Well, YouTube decided that this violates their policy of claiming the 2020 election was fraudulent, and they pulled our 200th episode down. Now, I will point out that no other podcasting platform has ever pulled an episode except for YouTube. And I want to know, because obviously they're listening to the show, because otherwise they wouldn't know we said this. But I want to know, why are you so afraid of the truth? The fact that the Steele dossier has been proven by multiple media sources, by the FBI, to be fraudulent. That fraudulent document led to a fraudulent impeachment. Why is YouTube so afraid of the facts?
Because it goes against the liberal narrative and the woke narrative, and it's a bigger issue that actually is serious. It's squelching free speech. Well, we didn't say anything, I don't think, controversial at all. Any political observer, anyone that is breathing on this planet, even if you're leaning to the left, would have to believe or understand, if they're open-minded at all, that yes, from the beginning, Trump was fake impeaching, fake dossier, all that stuff. Of course it affected. And the media never asked. The toughest question they asked Biden was, do you like vanilla or pistachio? And he had trouble answering that, by the way.
Yeah, and I will point out that we are carried by Google Podcasts. Google is YouTube's parent company. They have not, or actually, no, technically, I think they're a sister company because they're all owned by Alphabet now. But Google Podcasts has never removed any of our episodes. So it's just the people at YouTube that are so afraid of the truth.
Well, the bar is getting pretty low. I think if we mention that it's actually raining right now in Connecticut, that's a little controversial too, isn't it?
Yeah,
because who knows if it's really raining or not? I don't know. So yes, very interesting, Dr.
This is what happened with our 200th episode.
Well, they acknowledge it, and it's their way of giving us kudos for a job well done. It's their little way of saying thank you, isn't it?
That's exactly it.
Oh, great. So we have the abortion decision from the Supreme Court coming either this week or next week. And I'd like your insights. It's not a slam dunk for the Republicans in the senatorial, with this senatorial landscape, although Newt Gingrich today thinks it's going to go the Republican way, and so do I. But some of the races are very close, especially the one in Ohio that was plus Republican, now is about even. What do you think the abortion decision, what impact do you think that's going to have on the senatorial prospects for the Republican Party?
But I think it actually depends on what that decision is, because there has been information coming out that Chief Justice John Roberts has been looking for a way to say, yes, the Missouri law is, can stand, the 15 weeks is good, but they're looking for a way to do that without actually overturning Roe v. Wade. Now, there's a lot of doubts if they can figure this out, but if they do that, it's going to be a wash. It's not going to affect the election at all. If they do overturn Roe v. Wade, it's all going to depend on how people talk about it on the campaign trail. Because overturning Roe v. Wade, and the Democrats don't want you to know this, they keep trying to hide this, but overturning Roe v. Wade does not make abortion illegal. It just says the states are allowed to make their own laws.
Yeah, but
So
I really
that's a
believe, yes, you're right on the facts, but we're talking about the liberal media and the woke Democratic mindset at this point, and I think there'll be a tsunami, wall-to-wall coverage, interviews of everyone, young mothers who had an abortion, and without the abortion, they would have gone, be homeless, and all, yeah. And then Biden's gonna, obviously have a press. Well, he won't have a press conference. He's not capable of that, but certainly, address the issue exactly. I don't know. I think it's, I think it's one of the few things that can stand in the way of the Republicans running the House. I mean, in terms of running the show. Go ahead.
Here's the thing, though. It's not going to be an issue if Roe v. Wade is overturned in states that already are leaning Republican, even most swing states. Where it's going to bring out voters are New York, California, probably New England, Chicago, the Illinois area. These are areas the Republicans weren't going to win anyway.
I think that's a good point. And the other scenario that I think has legs, no one really talks about it except for Carnivore Radio, and that is, I think people have had it with the whole, starting with 2020, the Antifa rallies and, the destruction of the summer of 2020. I think people have had it with insanity in terms of these people demonstrating, some of the freaks that are on the surrounding the justices' houses. I mean, these people have no jobs. Yeah. I think that could impact people to say, okay, I've had enough. This lawlessness, this craziness has gone too far.
That is going to be a big factor, because pro-abortion activists have threatened violence if Roe v. Wade is overturned. If they go out, they're calling it the summer of rage.
Yes.
If we have a summer of rage, that's going to turn people against them. That's going to turn people to law and order candidates who will round these folks up and stop the riots. And one group in particular that really pisses me off is the group called Ruth Sent Us.
Yes.
Because the Ruth in question is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ruth Bader Ginsburg would never have condoned violence in this situation, in any situation, quite frankly. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg wrote how Roe v. Wade was bad case law and it needed to be ratified by the Congress. So these people who are doing this in Ruth Bader Ginsburg's name have no clue what Ruth Bader Ginsburg stood for.
Does that come as a surprise to you?
No.
I mean, these protesters are all emotionally based.
Generally, any group that relies on violence, and I'm talking about, Ruth Sent Us. I'm talking about some of these other pro-abortion groups. I'm talking about the idiots that ran through the Capitol on January 6th. I'm talking about, for years, the pro-life movement. Any group that relies on violence generally has no idea what the issues actually are, should immediately be ignored.
Oh, agreed, 100%. But I think they're useful idiots to because the Democrats have to hang on to something in the midterms. You look at just going a little ahead that Biden just announced that he wants a federal gas. Um, he wants to amend or suspend the federal gas tax for 3 months. Obviously, that's right before the midterms. The point is, they have very little to hang on to. They're desperate, and I think they'll leverage this as best as they can to try to salvage something from the midterms. And by the way, it's Biden's future. If the midterms are a bloodbath, Dick Morris, who has some let's say personal shortcomings, but I think he's very smart in terms of his political analysis. I'm quoting him. It's not going to be a tsunami. It's going to be a tsunami with a hurricane and a tornado. So if that does happen, Biden is absolutely finished. He will be primaried and probably will not run. If the Republicans do not get the Senate, he has a life.
At this point, I honestly don't think there's any chance that the Republicans are not going to take the Senate. They may only take one or two seats, but that's all they need at this point.
Exactly.
I mean, Biden, and the Democrats are trying to essentially distract the American public.
Exactly.
They don't want you talking about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. They don't want you talking about the possible recession, inflation, gas prices going up, the deluge of failed liberal policies. They don't want you talking about that. That's why they're televising January 6th hearings, because they're trying to go, oh, remember, it's dangerous to give Republicans power. That's why they're focusing on the potential of Roe v. Wade. Like, let me tell you something. If Democratic politicians actually cared about abortion, there were 4 separate occasions where they had the White House, the House of Representatives, and the Senate. They could very easily have ratified Roe v. Wade and made abortion the law of the land, and then this would not be happening. They did not do it because, one, as an issue, the only thing they like about it is that it can aggravate people enough to come out and vote. So they don't.
It's one of their few.
Yes,
one of their few pillars left.
Yeah, they don't want to ratify it because if it becomes the law of the land, it no longer motivates their base to vote.
There's no question about it. They both parties, let's be fair, use abortion as a tool. The Republicans do it.
The Republicans have done it too. Honestly, I mean, it really shouldn't be this rallying cry. The states do have, according to the Constitution, which does not specifically give the right of abortion, across the federal government. Based on that, then yes, the states should have the right to make their own laws. What kills me about this is the pro-choice people, and quite frankly, pro-life people too, do the same thing. Right now, we're seeing it on the pro-choice side, where essentially what they're saying is what they believe should be the law across the entire country. And it doesn't matter what people in other states think. Whereas if Roe v. Wade is actually overturned, the legislature of each state is going to have to answer to the voters in that state. And if Alabama or Arkansas or Texas says, our voters don't want to allow abortions, past 15 weeks or past whatever, it doesn't matter what the voters in California and New York want, because they have to answer to the voters in their states.
No question about it. It's an interesting point you have as well, that I was in Philadelphia last weekend, and billboards around the city.
And you made it out alive?
It is Dr. Lopkin. I lived there for 6 years.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Oy, oy, oy. We'll just leave it at that. Oh, my God. People in the streets. No, people in this. my girlfriend used a porta potty and there was syringes in it. It's not exactly how I left it, whatever, 20 years, 30 years ago, whatever it
Yeah.
was. God, brutal. But you do see billboards all over the place that says abortion's legal in Pennsylvania. So we'll see how this goes. We talked before about go woke and go broke. Disney at it again. Buzz Lightyear, which is one of those like shoe-ins. It's just like it's an annuity in terms of making money. It has fallen way short, and some attribute it in part because other movies have done well. You can say, well, movies aren't doing well overall. No, Jurassic Park, and there's a couple others that exceeded expectations. But Disney, leave it to them, had to have the lesbian kiss or the same-sex kiss in the movie, and I think people are starting to really take heed of that. What do you think?
Yeah.
It's not just this movie, it's other things.
Yeah, Lightyear. And for those of you who are not familiar with the movie, basically the idea behind the movie was that this was the Star Wars of the Toy Story universe. So where Toy Story featured the toy of Buzz Lightyear, Lightyear was supposed to be the movie that toy was based on.
Mm-hmm.
And the same-sex kiss actually ended up on the cutting room floor. It was removed from the movie. And then when Disney stuck their nose in Florida's sex education law, where Florida said you cannot teach sex education to kids under 8, which, I mean, it absolutely amazes me that there are people who are saying, oh, yes, we need to be teaching kids under 8 about sex.
Dr. Lopkin, that's an actual question for some people?
Yeah.
Hello, what are you smoking?
When Disney decided to try to go to war with Florida, they put the scene back. So they knew this was going to be poison, and they did it anyway to push their woke agenda. Now, let's face it, Lightyear is not a movie for adults. Adults are going to see it because they're bringing their little kids.
Yes.
And it goes back to, really, why are we trying to teach little kids sexuality? So, yeah, it goes back to the go woke, go broke. And Disney has been doubling down. Disney had actually announced that they were going to be moving a whole bunch of their employees from California to Florida because California is a lousy place to be doing business, and Florida right now is a great business state. Well, they announced they're postponing the move of these employees. I believe they said till 2026. The idea is they think they're going to outlast Ron DeSantis, and when he leaves office, then they'll move their employees. Well, guess what? The law's not going anywhere. Florida's not changing their mind, even in the next administration. And at this point, there's a strong possibility that Ron DeSantis may be the next president of the United States.
No doubt. Plus, beyond that, is Florida, under his leadership and other people seeing Florida for what it is now. And it's a very interesting point that I heard that it used to be California. Whatever happens in California, they set the tone for what's going to happen in the United States 5 years from now, whatever, okay? They're saying, no, Florida is the new bellwether, not California. And they also don't understand one thing, and it's really fiduciary misguidance, because whoever their CEOs, whoever their leaders are, have no clue in what their responsibility is for the shareholders. And if you have Disney stock, it sucks, okay? I know every stock now is, hit on bad times, but Disney over the last couple of years has not done well. And speaking of Disney, I got my hair cut, overdue, by the way, and I'm watching ESPN. And I remember I used to watch it with, what's his name? He could go all the way, or what I forgot. Berman. And it used to be funny, irrelevant, and now everything's political. I think they're going to have a special. This was yesterday on Title 19. I'm thinking, how many people are going, like, what, 5 people? It's again abandoning what they should be doing versus the woke agenda, because these woke ideologues, probably a lot of young people, don't understand what they actually should be doing. But people like Elon Musk do, and that's why he's shaking up the Twitterverse.
Yeah, I mean,
and social media.
You mentioned Title 19. Title 19 is a very important issue right now. And for those of our listeners who are not familiar with what Title 19 is, Title 19 protects women athletes and makes sure that they have the same opportunities as male athletes. Now, Title 19 has been under attack by the trans community because transgender women who used to be men want to be able to compete as women. Just a few days ago, the International Swimming Association announced that they will not be allowing transgenders to compete in women's sports. They will be creating a separate division. Now, I agree with that solution. I think that's the best thing to do because, again, if you transition after puberty, you have already gotten the male muscle mass that makes it that much more difficult for women to compete against transgenders. However, that third section is going to be an open section, which means, yes, transgenders can compete in that division, but so can men and so can women. So I guarantee you what's going to happen to that division is that male swimmers who are not doing all that well in the men's division are going to decide, well, wait a minute, I can do better if I compete in the open division. The same way Leah Thompson decided she wanted to compete against women and started breaking records. So you're going to see transgender athletes fighting against male athletes the same way they tried to deny the rights of women's athletes.
And what are the chances of ESPN not promoting that? I'd say they're going to be fully on board with it.
I would say I think ESPN will probably ignore that Title 19 is under attack and side with the transgender community.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
that's what Disney has been doing, and that's why their stock is going down. Their movies aren't doing as well. Attendance at the theme parks are down. By the way, I saw this the other day. Do you know what the most popular theme park in America is now?
I do not.
It is Dollywood.
That would make sense to me.
So, yeah, I mean, and I guarantee you that this is in response to Disney's woke agenda. People have said, I'm not supporting Disney, not to mention the fact that Disney raised their prices on their theme parks through the roof. Basically, you need to be a millionaire to go on vacation there. But people are saying enough is enough.
But does that surprise you? I mean, I think people might get confused and think it's only right-wing nutcases that are boycotting Disney. If I had young kids, 6, 7, 8 years old, it's kind of really sad because Disney was an oasis you could send, even from the 70s, where entertainment started going south. Let's say it was a safe haven. Now you have 8-year-old. You have to do your homework. And is there going to be a same-sex kiss? Is it going to be promoting transgender? I mean, so they've lost. You know something? They've lost the secret sauce. It wasn't like all these Disney movies. I'm talking kid movies. We're going to win, Oscars or whatever. But that's not the point. It was a safe, family-safe entertainment venue, and they shot themselves.
Yes, those of us who have kids have had huge libraries of Disney videos, DVDs that the kids watch. Yes, that the kids watched over and over again because we didn't have to worry about what was in there. And now that's no longer the case, and that is hurting the company. And of course, it's not just Disney. There's a lot of companies that are facing the backlash of a woke agenda, and not just companies, because now we're seeing that woke agenda at West Point.
Oh, okay. China's doing exercises. It just launched a state of the art aircraft carrier. There's been computer models, simulations that have us losing to the Chinese in naval conflict, okay? And yet, General Miley Cyrus and his crew of geniuses are introducing pronouns into West Point. I thought there our preeminent military academy that graduated Eisenhower and Patton and others, MacArthur. I mean, you don't think the Chinese and the Russians are looking at us and saying these people are committing suicide?
Well, of course they are. And that's why Putin invaded Ukraine, because we had a study saying our Navy was not ready for combat. We've
No.
got our military academies more worried about pronouns than combat readiness. We have, of course, had the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. All of this told Putin, oh, America's not going to be able to do anything against us.
And he's
We
right.
can take Ukraine.
And
And it
China's
is
right too.
and quite frankly, if you are so sensitive that it bothers you what pronoun is used, and let's be clear about this. If somebody is using a pronoun, it means they are referring to you in third person, which means you're not even in the room at the time. So if you're so concerned what pronoun people are using when you're not even there, you're not tough enough to defend this country.
No, and who's the gentleman that you were, the African American guy that he's in the media, the investment guy? He was on Gutfeld last
Oh,
night.
Charles Payne.
Yeah, I love the guy.
Yep.
And he was saying he was in the military. He talked about going
Yes.
to a boot camp and you get punched in the stomach and blah, blah. He talks to drill sergeants now. You can't defend anyone. I think the Chinese and the Russians aren't going to worry about pronouns and offending American soldiers. No, they're going to be interested in killing them.
Yeah, I mean, let's be realistic here. When you go through basic training, there is a scenario where you are running through a course with live ammo being fired over your head. Okay? How are you going to deal with that when you're too sensitive about what pronoun is being used?
And also, it's all about having respect for your leaders, the people around you. They always say it's not even about the enemy; it's about the relationship and the bond you have with your fellow soldiers. It's another way to, just like the liberals do all the time, and the woke agenda. It's about separation. Okay, you're not going to have a cohesive military unit. You might have some freako, like a guy who's swimming at UPenn, being your leader, and he's got, okay, guys, we're going to take the hill, but I have to put on my makeup. Yes, sir. I mean, yes.
Yeah, it is absolutely ridiculous. And I think, honestly, the best example that we could follow was that of the original Star Trek show. Now, Star Trek has always had a very liberal agenda of equality, and more recently, they've gone completely woke with some of the new series. But in the original, every officer on the Enterprise was referred to as Mr. And that included Lieutenant Uhura. It was in the writer's guide, it explains that it would be Mr. Uhura. Everybody was referred to equally as Mr. Now you've got people putting their preferred pronouns on social media, and I actually came across somebody's profile the other day that where they put the pronouns, they actually put he, she, they, it.
Well, there's a more troubling scenario. World War II, the Japanese, hung people from their toes to get the information. So the bar's now so low, Dr. Lopkin, that they can basically break you by calling you he or she. Okay. I'll give you the plans. I can't take this anymore.
No,
Yeah, so you just hit a
our
guy.
military is not ready for combat. We've seen our internal reports have said that. You know, the Navy actually stated this
Loses.
publicly that they were not ready because they are focusing on this woke agenda. Meanwhile, we've actually got two soldiers who went over to fight in Ukraine who have been captured by the Russians, and the Russians have said, well, America's not officially in the war, so we are treating these people as
As
terrorists,
mercenaries.
as mercenaries. They are not going to follow the Geneva Convention, and they will not take the death penalty off the table, which, according to the Geneva Convention, is illegal to execute an enemy combatant. What
Well,
are
how
we
about
doing
Mr.
about
Biden? How
that?
come he hasn't? How come I haven't heard anything from Mr. Biden? I've heard it on certain news outlets, but not. Mr. Biden hasn't said a word.
No,
Deeply concerned, I'm sure.
that is what our military should be focused on. Situations like that.
Interesting. Well, moving to the political arena again, revisiting that, there's a poll that Trump leads Biden. Brace yourself. Not by 10, not by 20 points, which it should be, 3 points. I think that sucks.
Well,
By Cat Carl could lead Biden. Anyone breathing should be leading Biden by at least 10.
Even the Republicans have had it with Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been endorsing Republican candidates in primaries across the country, and he's choosing them not by who's good for the country, not even by who's good for the Republican Party, but who agrees with him that the 2020 election was stolen. Trump needs to go away.
Immediately.
He is causing so much trouble for the Republicans. Do I think it's going to be a drag in November? No. But is it going to be a drag in 2024 if he doesn't go away? Absolutely. He needs to stop. If he wants to be in the public eye, he needs to stop talking about the 2020 election and focus on the fact that under his leadership, we had record low unemployment. We were energy independent. We had a booming economy. And the idiot that's in charge now has destroyed all of that.
Yes, but he's incapable of it. And the fact of the matter is, regardless if there was inappropriate behavior in the 2020 election, he still lost to Biden because it never should have been that close. He lost to a mental midget who has the IQ and the capacity of a squirrel, and he lost, and he needs to just go away, shut up. And I think the other thing about it, I'd like your opinion on
what
this.
He needs to accept is that the reason that Biden was able to beat him was because of his own ego. Biden did not beat Trump. Trump beat Trump.
There is no question about it, and there was a huge Trump fatigue. I'm a conservative, that's obvious, and even I got to the point that it's like, okay, come on, just stop it. I can't take it anymore. And I think he became a little unglued at the end. I really do believe that. But he needs to go away. Go ahead. But one thing that's more salient, and that is I believe that we're not the only ones. My conservative friends, all on board with the same thought process that Trump had his time. We need to move on. I believe, and I've heard other commentators say this, and editorial pieces, Brit Hume, among others, that, yeah, he used to be the 800-pound gorilla in the room. He's big. He might be a 200-pound, but he's not the 800-pound gorilla. And he only has a 60% success rate that people don't really understand in close elections. Like when he piles on and endorses someone that's already predetermined to win, fine, yes, he chalks up that victory. But in close races and with other people's endorsements, Ted Cruz among others, Nikki Haley, he's only at 60%. So I think there's fissions in his power base.
Yeah, there certainly are. People are tired of the drama. And in fact, I actually know somebody that worked for Donald Trump. He his company did the signage for Trump's buildings. So he had to deal one on one with Donald Trump. He knows him. He was a huge Trump supporter, both during 2016 and 2020. And now he's going, you know what? Enough is enough. He can't get out of the way of his own ego. He needs to stop. And this is somebody that knows and likes him.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And we've talked before about the January 6th commission. Yes, it's a political show trial, but it is landing some punches, and there's no way to deny that. It is on prime time. It doesn't have the viewership or the participation rate that they thought, but it still does not reflect well on him, especially the recorded conversations and other, not liberals, but conservative people in his administration, basically even barred. The guy's not fit for office. I think it has landed some punches. I think everyone's sick of this 2020 shit. He lost. Were there idiosyncrasies? Were there problems with the election? Yes. But he was in a position to lose, meaning it never should have been that close. And that's my final verdict on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, Biden didn't beat Trump. Trump beat Trump. People got tired of his insanity. And while the January 6th may be landing a few blows, I don't think they're landing enough to have any effect on the Republican Party. But they may have enough of effect that the Republican Party turns to Trump and says, no, you know what? You're damaged goods. We are not nominating you for president again in 2024.
100%. And you know something? Not by intention or design, but just the aftermath, they actually might have done the Republicans a favor by giving them an excuse to say your day is over. And which is really interesting as well, because I saw, again, being on I'm a little vacation now and staying up, couldn't get to sleep last night. I was watching Laura Ingraham on Fox, and she had a really good piece about Princess Nancy Pelosi, and about how she's really an abject failure. She's lost the majority, will lose the majority twice, or maybe a third time this time. She's really very ineffective, but still continues to move on. She's a gift that the Republicans can always count on, is my point.
Nancy Pelosi is one of those people like Jeff Zucker, who just seems to keep failing upwards.
Yeah, exactly.
It's absolutely amazing. And I mean, Pelosi showed just how weak she is when she kowtowed to the squad and the wackos on the left.
Yeah, but you know something with her, it's never about America. It's about her own power and her own
It's about her money and her insider trading.
No question about it. And her own power base. She's incompetent in terms of any kind of political ideology, but she does know how to orchestrate things.
If you really want to see how big a failure Nancy Pelosi is, go visit her district in San Francisco. It is an absolute shit show. And I do not mean that metaphorically. Her district has a problem with human feces on the streets from an enormous homeless problem.
Well, yeah, it speaks for itself. I would agree. Moving on, not really moving on, again, with a woke ideology, not something that's just partial to the United States, but is an international phenomenon. In fact, the World Health Organization wants to, or will, rename monkeypox because they assert that it's got a racist backdrop. It shows you where their head is at. Like, who would even equate that? Like, what are you thinking about?
It really is ridiculous. It's like, this is a disease.
Yeah.
And it's a disease that, as I understand it, it's a coronavirus family of viruses. It's incubated in monkeys, which is how it originally got its name. And now it's,
But
oh, well, calling it that is racist.
it
And
shows you who the real racists
actually,
are.
I'm going to
Yeah.
cut you off here for just a moment because I just got a news alert that Tony Siragusa from the Baltimore Ravens, ex Super Bowl champion, has just died at age 55.
Wow. Any cause of death?
I'm going through the release now, but it does not say what the cause of death is. Hopefully, news media will cover that later on today. But yes, he has passed away at age 55.
Wow, interesting. You know something? I wouldn't be shocked if it might be fentanyl related.
It could be
Pain.
fentanyl related. It could be related to the numerous shots that football players take to the head. There are a
Well, so
lot of
that's why I mentioned
possibilities.
fentanyl because of for pain relief and not being able to get, let's say, medications for by a prescription. Maybe was forced to get things, other ways. So we'll see.
It
That is definitely a tragedy.
it's possible. I think it's important we stress that this is speculation. All we know at this point is that he has passed away.
And that's very, very unfortunate. Speaking of unfortunate, the PGA Tour, I'm a golfer, with the new Saudi Arabian entry into it, I think it's really going to have an effect on the PGA. You have a lot of people, noteworthy, top notch golfers hitting the road.
Yeah, you've got top golfers who are going to this new league for a lot more money, and that's the reason they're going. And I find it absolutely hysterical that you have these people yelling, oh, how could they be playing for a Saudi Arabian league when Saudi Arabia has all of these human rights violations? And
How
yet,
about China?
these same people have no problem with the NBA operating in China and buying Nike shoes that are made with Chinese slave labor. So I mean the hypocrisy just jumps out at you.
It certainly does. Yes, the NBA is among the worst. They're woke on steroids in America. Even the things about like what is it, Pride Month, that's not going to fly in China, and they'll kowtow. They would walk away from that because in the end, it's all about money.
Yeah.
So you related a little bit to the January 6th committee. You had Colbert. He got his crew and him got in trouble for basically violating or doing trespassing, in the White House and related buildings. And it brings up a real better point. And again, having a little trouble getting to sleep last night, I was flicking through the late night channels, and I remember when I was a kid watching Johnny Carson and others that we mentioned, and it's really all of them are unwatchable. I mean, it's not funny. Um, he went from Colbert being, I remember him on the Comedy Channel. He was relatively funny. I wasn't the hugest fan, but he was pretty funny. He was witty. Now he's just become a political mean ideologue. And I heard a really interesting critique of his show. It's when you watch his show, there's not a lot of laughing because he's not a comedian anymore. He's an activist. You see a lot of applauding, not laughing. That's a huge difference.
There is a huge difference because laughing is spontaneous. When something's funny, you laugh. All of these shows, they've got an applause sign. So when the sign lights up, the audience applauds, whether it's sincere or not. So the fact that they're not getting laughs is very telling. We have the worst group of late night comedians that have been on probably in the history of television.
History of television.
Yes. And thanks to the streaming services, I routinely still watch Johnny Carson at night.
Of course, yes. He's got a show on, it's called Antenna TV. They have the reruns. Even at 40 years old, 30 years old, it is 1,000% better. And it was this whole thing. We talked about Disney. It's the same thing. He was politically neutral. Probably his own ideology was a little bit to the right, but you trash Reagan, Carter. He was fun. He was a safe place again. But now you got Colbert, Kimball, and who's the one on NBC?
Fallon, Jimmy Fallon.
Zero talent. Okay, I saw him. He was interviewing Kim Kardashian. Horrible, not funny at all. He wasn't offensive. I'm not saying that. Zero talent. Even others that you mentioned last week, they were funny. The guy from England, he was great.
It is absolutely amazing. And, Antenna TV is not available everywhere. I can't get Antenna TV. But the free version of Peacock has Johnny Carson. There's an app called Pluto that actually streams an entire channel of Johnny Carson 24/7. And watching Johnny Carson, I was absolutely tickled just watching it a few days ago, watching him go after the incompetence of Joe Biden 40 years ago.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Now he's obviously he's on his Z game, not A game, but he was never bright. He was always a political hack, and now you have him even in a depleted state. So, excuse me, how bad can you get? Well, we're on 101 episodes, Dr. Lopkin. Hopefully YouTube will, 201, 201, and maybe we'll get a little gift basket from YouTube.
Right. Yeah. It is.
I'm waiting for it.
Amazing. It is absolutely amazing what they are afraid of. And of course, even when we're not on YouTube, you can still find every episode of Carnivore Radio at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.
Well, congratulations, Dr. Lopkin, on 201, the batting average of Dave Kingman. Remember him?
Yes, I remember Dave very well. And our next milestone comes up in just a few weeks, because when we hit, I believe it'll be about 209 episodes. That puts us at 200 episodes above anything that ran on CNN Plus.
There you go. That should be, yes, that will be our crowning achievement. Well, that's pretty low, isn't it? We could do better than that. Well, thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and we'll be back next week.
We'll see you then.